Hi everyone, just wanted to clarify this is a review for the Marathon Service Slam, a beta that came out not too long ago, and the full game is officially out, so I'm working on a full review for it. These are just my initial thoughts, so please enjoy, and thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Marco Hernandez, Itsminusmarco or Marco, and welcome back. I'm going to be talking about my experiences playing the Marathon Service Slam and talking about my pros and cons based off my time playing it for 8 hours. So Marathon is an extraction FPS hero shooter developed by Bungie. Bungie being a pretty well-known video game development company making huge games like Halo, the Halo trilogy, and Halo Reach. And then moving on to making the Destiny franchise, in which I played a lot of. Destiny 2 is a game I mentioned in my personal essay, but I played over 1,700 hours in it. And Marathon is actually based off an older game of theirs, well, of the same name, Marathon. And what a lot of people have said about this Marathon game is it's kind of like a reboot, but almost feels like a new game. And it combines both two types of genres of games. One being a hero shooter, so think of games like Apex Legends. There's various heroes with various abilities that are unique to them and have their own kind of play style. And then the extraction shooter part where it's all about entering a map, grabbing loot from it, kind of like a battle royale almost, but then you have to escape out of the map in order to keep the loot you grab. Very similar to like Arc Raiders, very similar to Tarkov, which are the extraction shooter genre. So through the Service Slam, you are able to play contracts. So that's kind of the way in which you're able to progress through its story, or at least not necessarily like a typical campaign in a video game, but you do these objectives once you enter a map, and then exfil out of it to get some context. You're entering a planet called Tau City, distinct by two maps, Dire Marsh and Parameter. From the factions you work with, you are ordered to scavenge the lost colony that was lost at that planet due to uncertain circumstances. That part isn't explained too well, which I am assuming they're saving for the rest of the video game. All the factions have a stake in this Tau City planet, and so everyone is trying to get involved in this planet essentially, but trying to either loot some stuff from there, cause a scene, or discover what happened, and trying to maybe regain something that they invested in back from the Marathon colony that did travel to Tau City. So there are 6 shells available to play in the Service Slam. The story is able to engage with more high-tense shootouts, where it has its shields to either use for defense or maybe barge into a new environment where there's some crazy stuff going on, right? And then it has its boosters where it's able to push itself forward. And next is Vandal. Vandal is a more agile, more mobility based hero, or shell in this case. One of my favorite things is that it's able to double jump, which is something that no other character is able to do in this game. And it kind of changes the way you see the map. It's like, oh, I see this area, it seems more elevated vertically. As Vandal, that's like a perfect place for you to engage because you're able to access more of its topside areas quickly compared to other characters. Other characters have to look for stairs, and Vandal's able to get up there just by double jumping. So I was in a shootout with my teammates against UESC units. One of them was on like the 2nd floor of this one building, and there was no quick, easy way to access them. We had to enter the building across like other doorways and then find our way up to where he's at. Because in the clip you see in quick instances, but it dodges. It moves. The enemy freaking dodges out of the way, but it goes like pretty far. Like it starts like sliding across the way, and it's pretty funny because I'm like, it just went all the way around and it took cover on the other side of the building. And because of that, I'm like, oh, well, I have no other choice but to chase him into the building. So I saw that there's windows shattered to get to the second floor, and then I was able to just double jump to the second floor and get straight to it. And that's pretty cool because as other characters, I would have to enter the building, find some stairs, and go up to look for that enemy. And in the case of a runner, if this was a runner shell, another player, then it would have been a lot more useful to definitely engage with him a lot quicker in that kind of place where you can meet them where they are. And the other shell is Recon. This shell is pretty good. However, I didn't use this shell to its fullest extent. It's pretty good where you're able to have a radius, have this scan radius where you're able to see where there are enemies nearby, whether that be AI enemies or runners, other players. And I for sure didn't take advantage of that too much because I feel like I always encounter them just naturally. Like I didn't expect to encounter another runner here and there, so I'm just like, oh crap, I probably should have set my ult before then. but I do love its other ability where it sends out a seeker, where it's like this little spider looking robot, and it starts finding its way to an enemy, and then it also blows up and does some damage to them. So that's a pretty useful ability. So you could toss it to a place where you may not know where an enemy is at, but that seeker will at least take you to the direction of where they are. I thought Recon would be pretty overpowered because of that ability where you could look for where the enemies are. And in some instances, it's pretty good, pretty useful, right? But like I mentioned, right, it's like you gotta strategize when to use that properly. I believe probably the best time is when you're engaging in gunfights and maybe you lose track of the enemy. And it could be a squad and especially a character like Assassin, in which I'll get into later, and you lose track of them because they go invisible. And they go really invisible too. Speaking of Assassin, that is the next shell. Assassin was the most played shell in the Server Slam based off Bungie's stats that they released after the Server Slam. And it makes sense. I mean, this character I did use quite a lot. Assassin was probably my third most played shell when I was doing runs. I have engaged with a few of the Assassins. Luckily that, I don't know, you can still sort of see like their translucent type of body in its edges as it's invisible. So it's not completely gone out of the screen. But I could see how it's hard for some folks where it could be definitely blurred into the environment. And it's like, where the heck is he? Assassin's ult is pretty cool where it drops a big smoke and it kind of clouds the big radius of the area. And you, as an assassin, you are able to, whenever you do enter the smoke and you get out of it, you are invisible. It automatically triggers your invisibility and you're able to kind of, evade the enemy a lot faster. The next shell is Triage. It was my second most played shell in this game. Out of all the characters aesthetically, I really love Triage and its medic robot, or medbot that it's called, I think, in the game. And it's such a cute little thing that just floats in the corner of your screen, and you could throw 3 of these out, one of them to each of your teammates and one for yourself. And it's able to give you health over time, build up your shields, and on top of that, a connection between you and your players whenever you want to, let's just say you want to use the shield charge to recharge your shields. That is also transferred to the other players you're playing with if they have the medbot hovering over them. Triage ult is pretty cool. You kind of use your arms as like a defib for reviving enemies, that you could revive them from a distance, and they come up immediately. And then he uses offensively too, where you could damage enemies using the same ability. And then the last shell that was available was Rook. Rook is a very unique shell in Marathon where it's a character that has very limited abilities, where you're able to blend in with UESC units around the map and kind of hide from them so that they don't detect you. And you blend with them too, so if you're around maybe other runners, you could like use them as cover in some way. Actually, in playing as Rook, it's pretty intense actually. So Rook was one of the 2 times I was running solo. If you go up against other runners, for example, I mean, you could try to create an alliance, but they're more than likely going to shoot you. I unfortunately shot at a Rook in one of my runs. I saw someone from a distance. It looked like they were like kind of hiding or creeping in towards us, right? And at first I was like, oh crap, there's gonna be an enemy team coming. So I was shooting at them, and then they ran off. So then I was able to catch them on the other side, and I downed them. But then I realized, oh, it was a Rook, It was I don't think they were trying to engage with us. You know, they were actually just trying to sneak in, maybe let us leave the area so then they can enter after us. As soon as you see an enemy in Marathon, I mean, you're not gonna maybe make an alliance with them first. You're probably just gonna try to take them out. At least for me, that's what I did a lot of the times. I didn't really try to use proximity chat too much. After I did down the rook, though, I did say like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Like, I really didn't mean to. I didn't know it was a rook. If it was a rook and it didn't look like it was going to engage with us, then I would have just left it be. As rook, you're entering an ongoing match, and you're coming in into a time where, you know, maybe some teams are already engaged with each other. Some of them are down, so then you can take some loot. And then UESC units are pretty tough, actually, especially as a solo player. So as a rook, that ability where you can blend in, it really comes in handy, but it's just like you got to make sure you use it right, because once they know of you and they attack you, you could get pretty overrun as a single player. Okay, so now that the stage is set and now its shells are established and the environment, I want to go over the pros of my experiences. So definitely this game, for one, I love the look of it. Visually, this game is really beautiful. It's very colorful. It looks like a very Macintosh inspired, old school PC looking. It almost sounds like I'm saying a cuss word. It's very heavily inspired by like this classic PC look where it has that blue screen, green font, and it looks like there's a lot of QR codes going around. For sure, the most unique thing about the game visually are the weapons. I mean, some of these they look sort of like weapons, but they look strange at the same time. They look like tools or like toy almost. But I mean, it still works well in this kind of setting because it matches like the vibes of it. The gameplay is amazing. I love the different types of weapons you can use in this game, from its more ballistic weapons, but also its energy weapons, and how you can use them in different ways because there's like subsets between them. So submachine guns, assault rifles, snipers, scout rifles, burst rifles. There's a lot of different types of weapons in this game, and I honestly didn't even get to play all of them. There's some weapons that I didn't get around to using. There's times where I pick up a weapon for the first time and I'm like, oh, this is a cool weapon, and I kind of pop off, but then I get down and I die, so I lose the weapon. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just hopefully come across it again in the next run. It gives you more reason to, you know, go back to the map, right, to continue playing, because you're like, oh man, I had my hands on this weapon, but I didn't fully get to use this. And that was for sure my objective every time I went to the map. I always try to make sure I use different weapons to also get more familiar with different types, but also there's some weapons where I got to use repeatedly because they're like more of the beginner weapons that you could get from sponsor kits or just around the map. It feels very like satisfying to use a lot of these weapons. The submachine gun, for example, it first starts off as a higher fire rate, but then as you continue to use it to shoot at an enemy, the fire rate gets slower and slower and slower and slower. But then you're not using as much energy. As for the maps in Marathon, between Parameter and Dire Marsh, I did enjoy Dire Marsh more. And this is the map that also had its like forest type of environment between its industrial looking areas. So that's always like the transition period between you and getting to another place. And those settings were for sure more sketchy if you were to fight against enemies there, because there's not a lot of cover. And definitely don't recommend taking a fight to the enemy there because it's just a lot more open. Marathon was my first type of extraction game I've ever played, and going into it I was expecting to be very challenging, to be very kind of harsh, because you're like, dang, I got all this good loot, and then there's a high probability chance that if I go into another match using this loot I will lose it. And there is actually, I mean, there's a system in this game where you can only use a weapon for a certain amount of times called a transfer credit or a currency, and essentially if you use a weapon, you got down, then someone took it, it drops like its credit down. And so I think a weapon typically has like 5, so like after 5 transfers between players it becomes a weapon that's just sold into credits and you just get currency from it. But honestly, I think it's a good cycle to get you going back to the game to like I mentioned, right, where maybe you grabbed the weapon that you really liked, but you didn't really get to use it too much, and so you're seeking for that weapon almost every run to make sure you have like it again after you lose it, or maybe you just want to restock on that certain type of weapon. And there's a lot of opportunities though if you are not doing so well and you lose a lot of your loot. there's sponsor kits that you get from different factions that you are able to play with in the game. And these different sponsor kits have just like a weapon, have like pretty low tier weapons and just limited items, but just enough for you to get going back into the game, and so that you don't have to take stuff out of your vault, or maybe you just don't have stuff, and that can be used as your starter kit to look for more loot. All of this is subjective, right? So I mean, you can play the game yourself and find out whether you like it or not. But from my perspective and the cons I faced, definitely the UI, it could be very jarring, very overwhelming at first, especially when you don't know what a lot of these items do. I was just thinking like, okay, which ones are like for this faction, right? Which ones do I need for that one? You got to know where you're picking up is the idea. And I mean, you can start picking up whatever right at first, maybe just to get more familiar with it. I felt like that material just blurred with everything else you could pick up, and for sure what just attracted my attention was just the colored items, right? And picking up that. You'll get used to it, the UI, and just what the different items are used for. You'll keep track of what the factions need to use for their upgrade system. One quick con, there's these shell specific mods that you can pick up. A lot of the times I came across thief mods, and I mean, I couldn't even play that character, so why is it even available to pick up to begin with? So there's this con that a lot of people were saying, and I did experience this a few times in the game, and it's the fact that you do run out of ammo pretty quickly in this game, and especially in the maps, like after you use most of your ammo and you're trying to look for some, it's really hard to scavenge for some. And the weapon type that I felt like I've always had ammo for was always the energy weapons with the batteries. And that weapon was for sure more of a weapon you should always have a type of in your arsenal, because it's something you can rely on and fight a lot of ammo for. But there's also a workaround this ammo issue. So within the factions page, you're also able to buy just items from them, and some of the things you could get is different types of ammo. And after you reach a certain level with factions, you're able to unlock more stuff and more things to buy from these factions. And so I just had a lot of currency from playing multiple runs, and had the opportunity to just restock on ammo and not really worried about having issues once I enter the map. However, it's when I am in the map and I use up all the ammo that I'm like, oh crap, I need to go look for some. And then looking for some is just a lot more difficult. That's when I reach the part where it's just like, well, I'm out of ammo. And then I'm stuck to using this one type of gun, that being the energy weapon most of the time. I guess I did sort of mention it, but Parameter is kind of an okay map. I feel like it's the weaker of these two that were available. It felt not as distinct, but also not as interesting. I feel like the environments were a lot smaller in some places, and the areas were more compact, so you're able to get to one area a lot quicker. And I mean, I guess that's a benefit too, making sure you don't run for too long in the match. But definitely, whenever I wanted to play a run in Marathon and I have a contract in Parameter, I'm like, I mean, I kind of don't want to run this map. I wish I could do this in Dire Marsh instead. Another con about the maps is that between both of them, honestly, there's some moments where I am exploring like these different sections of the map. And I mean, in the first wave of the map, you are taking out like more lower enemies, and then reinforcements come in, and when those reinforcements come in, they're a lot more higher tier enemies. I didn't feel as engaged fighting against UESC units in these more entry-level areas, because I'm just like, they're kind of like fodder. But there are some bosses. In some ways, there's a middle ground between the type of UESC enemies you fight, but when I was playing the game, I came across just two types of them, right? There's like the easy fodder that you just get through. They're just kind of like more of a nuisance. But there's like the really tough areas where, whether it's reinforcements or there's a certain location where a boss shows up, it's like, dude, you're fighting this guy for a good while actually. And whenever I fight these bosses, I'm just like using all my ammo for it, and I'm like, dude, it's still not down. Overall, Marathon Server Slam was a ton of fun. Like, I really enjoyed it. It's a game that I was like, okay, well, I could always get better at it, continue learning and exploring new things. And this is just only like its beta, so even with not engaging with most of the content, for the main core loop of the game, it's pretty fun. I really liked it. I can see myself playing this game pretty endlessly and just finding ways to improve and to continue exploring what weapons and what kind of loadouts are best for me and for my certain shell and type of playstyle. I will most definitely grab the game for myself and try to continue playing it, hopefully make a full review once I've dedicated a good amount of time to it to further reinforce maybe my thoughts, but also maybe change my perspective on certain things. And hopefully it'll be a great time once I discover more of its different secrets, but also get more familiar with its different weapons and systems. And I think that's the part I'm most excited for, just to see what this game continues to unravel as I continue to play it. And that's pretty fun. And that's Marathon Server Slam. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Please take care, please be well, and I'll see you next time. Bye!